A joyous new year to you. My name is Brenda from Risk in Focus Consultants. Joining me is David Kiguru, who is our Director of Risk Management. He will be answering questions as they come in from our viewers. Karibu sana, David.
Thank you so very much, Brenda. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you to see you again. It's last year that we were discussing about risk management and we went for holidays.
Yes.
Back we are here to discuss the same.
Yes.
We have seen some risks being seen from the horizon, like the one we are seeing in the flu in China.
Yes, yes.
But we pray that it will not be like COVID-19,
Yes, very true.
so
Yeah.
that we are able to move ahead with the way we do things without pandemics. Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
very
Thank
true.
you. Thank you.
Okay, so David, you had taken us through sections of risk management, generic process of establishing the context, and risk assessment in regard to risk identification, analysis, and evaluation. So David, what is next?
You see now, if you remember very well, we had done how you establish the context. We came to risk assessment in terms of identification, risk analysis and evaluation. And we had said that when you're doing now the evaluation is where most likely the decision about how to deal with those risks will be done. Primarily what we are doing the generic risk management process.
Yes.
And now we at a point where you're asking ourselves, because we have seen their risks which we have prioritized, we have known the impact that they can bring to our objectives, what next?
Yes.
After now making that decision, there are various ways in which we can respond now to this risk. It's called the risk response, because you have been able to see this is what is likely to happen, and this is what impact it can have into our objectives.
Okay.
Could have heard people talking about the 40s,
Yes.
and the 40s is about how you can respond to risk in terms of whether you tolerate it, you can treat it, you can transfer it, or you can terminate it. And each of those 40s will depend on whether the likelihood is high, low, or the impact is high or low.
Okay.
All of those kind of scenarios will require you to deal in a different way. Now, for example, if the likelihood is low and the impact will be low, then you see there's nothing much to invest in that. It is just to tolerate that risk.
Okay.
In that maybe even the cost of managing that risk is higher than the benefit we are getting out of it.
Okay.
So you can just say we will tolerate that risk.
Okay.
When the impact is low and the likelihood of it happening is still low.
Okay.
So the way we can deal with it is to actually tolerate, or just like a form of ignoring it.
Okay.
From there, if you will find that some scenarios, the impact will be low, but the likelihood is high. And in that regard, then we need to bring in some mechanisms to manage that risk. For example, if we are having a production and there is the conveyor belt that we know it can break down after usage, then we know that the likelihood of it happening might be low, but the impact would not be much.
Okay.
Because we are putting in controls, but the likelihood is high. Maybe when it reaches the time that we need to change. In that case, we can manage that, and we can be able maybe to change that conveyor belt or something like that. That is how we do the treatment. We manage that risk. Yeah, and we are doing it when the likelihood is high, but the impact could be low.
Okay.
The next one is when the likelihood itself is low, but the impact can be high.
Okay.
You can imagine the vehicles on the road. They don't hit one another every day. So the likelihood of the accidents is raw, but the impact, if it happens, will be a major one.
Okay.
So in this case, somebody would say, because of the impact being high, why don't I transfer this risk to somebody else? And that is why you see people now engaging in insurance.
Yes,
They say now, is it life insurance? Is it the theft, the insurance?
Yes, yes.
All those
Yes.
are transferred to somebody else, of course, at a premium. But the thing we need to note is that even though we are transferring that risk to somebody else, it doesn't mean that we fold our hands and say, now, because my vehicle is insured, I don't even need to break it, to cross it when I go to a mall.
Yes.
You see, because even if maybe the third party will compensate in terms of the loss of that vehicle, but you can imagine the impact is still will affect other objectives that you have, maybe that were not covered within the insurance policy. So it is important that even if you are transferring it to somebody else, then also we need also to put mechanisms to ensure that we manage the risks to the extent that we are not ignorant. And much of those transfer policies will have clauses on how what is my role, even if I've transferred that risk to somebody else. That is when the likelihood is raw, but the impact is high.
Okay.
We had talked also about when the likelihood is high and the impact is high.
Yes.
You know, then in that case, you might want to terminate that activity that would affect your objectives.
Okay.
You may know that in our communities, we have several cultural beliefs and the way we live.
Okay.
Imagine there are some communities now who will regard pork as a taboo.
Yes.
And if I create a factory in those communities that will be processing pork, then I have invested a fortune in there. The likelihood of failing is very high,
Yes.
and the impact will be very high, is almost certain,
Yes.
because nobody will come to buy the pork.
Yes, yes.
So I'll have an objective of selling the pork products to that community. But now the likelihood of succeeding is raw. Is raw. Yeah, I cannot succeed.
Yes.
And then the objective will not be achieved. So the likelihood of failing is very high.
Yes.
And the impact will be very high. So the issue here is I'll need to terminate that activity that I wanted to do, because I might not be able to achieve the objectives. But you might want to ask yourself again, must we always terminate? If, for example, there is a country, a state, and there is the likelihood of terrorism, and the impact will be very high, maybe they'll come and bring in a building, God forbid. Now, the state cannot say that because the likelihood is very high and the impact will be very high, why don't we terminate it? You know, some scenarios will require, or maybe let's say there's a kind of a disease, the COVID-like kind of, that has come to a country, and the cost of now bringing people, or maintaining the health for people is costly, and of course the likelihood of that maybe flu affecting the people is still high. You know, the government or the Ministry of Health cannot just say because they are high, let's terminate it. So some scenarios will require whether it is high impact, high likelihood, we still need to go and ensure that we manage it. Maybe the damage control, we prevent the loss from happening, all those kind of things. So that is how we respond, the risk response to the ones that we have prioritized when we did our evaluation and we did our analysis.
Yes, yes.
So thank you so very much.
Thank you
Brenda.
so
Yeah.
much. For more of this content, subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you on the next one.